So Gensler, actually we mentioned them last week, I think, when we was covering the black architect company who kept changing names and they was around for a while. They were the leading in the space. So but Gensler is converting office spaces into residential spaces, building apartments. Jerry, I know you said you did some research. Um but so a couple things that I saw when I was looking at this story, which is also interesting. This conversion, they're doing the conversion, and they're supposedly in mainly downtown. So they're trying to take vacant lots, vacant office, and distressed property, and then turn them into apartments. Um, but the apartments that they already built, they're not even meeting the seismic requirements. So pretty much if the earthquake happened or something like that happens, some of the buildings that they're converting into homes are not even resilient. I did check with uh Mama Torre about or Comrade Torre about Philadelphia, because they did build one in Philadelphia where it's normally out of price for anybody. So even though it's language as they're working on houseless people or trying to solve the houseless problem, is always a high end type people that will be, living in these spaces. They pretty
Are you
much
saying they're
making.
claiming to be doing this to solve the houseless crisis?
Well, I don't think they're claiming to do it, but I think one will assume
Nah.
that building more housing or homes will help people out. But I'm just
No,
making it clear that it has
that's
nothing to
not
do with
why.
housing.
Yeah, they know that's not
Yeah,
why they're doing it.
no, I'm not saying that they're doing it. I'm not saying that's why they're doing it. I would disagree with that's why they're doing it. I don't want
Well, I'm
people to
just
use
making sure that whoever
it
happens to think that who comes across this video is clear that they're not doing it to help houseless people.
at all.
Uh, yeah. Um, just quickly, what I just a few things because I wasn't really familiar with it too closely before you put it back in the chat. I don't even remember us talking about this before,
Mhm.
but just quickly, what is being reported here earlier this year is that Gensler has devised an algorithm to help convert office spaces into residential spaces. So, and it's and just a quick summary of it is that their algorithm evaluates 150 aspects of a building's layout and design, such as core to window depth and the number of elevators and parking spots. From public data, broker websites, and subscription services, the tool can determine a conversion viability score in hours. Simplicity and speed are key. There's always that desire to tinker, Painter says, about complicating the algorithm, but we knew these decisions need to be made quickly and inexpensively. So they've found a quick and inexpensive way for them to find what existing commercial real estate they can convert to residential. And then why I think that they're doing this, I went to one of my favorite spots, Wall Street on Parade, and I will pull this story up here. Um, One of the reasons why this came out just yesterday, I believe, the 28th. Yeah, five banks have a combined $500 billion in commercial real estate loans. Number one is J.P. Morgan Chase. So there's a lot of debt involved with commercial real estate that, as this story reports, smaller banks want to get rid of. So they're looking to invest to survive. So there is looking to invest in residential real estate because the commercial market is, as I'll come to in a minute, collapsing. But it's also uh, um, uh, monopolized by bigger banks. So what this story is saying is that the bigger banks have a holding. Let's see. Yesterday, American Banker released a report showing that five banks in the U.S. hold a combined $500 billion in commercial real estate or CRE loans. It came as a big surprise to a lot of folks that the bank holding the largest amount of CRE loans is J.P. Morgan Chase, whose bank holding company is also exposed at $49 trillion in derivatives as of December 31st, 2023. So there's concern that people who have taken out loans for commercial real estate won't be able to pay them, and it could cause a crisis if these bigger banks are caught up in that, and they are. Now, the good news for the bigger banks is that, and here are the totals for the loans that they hold. On the commercial real estate. each bank. But it totals to $500 billion, 500 million or billion rather, and more. But as the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell testified on March 7th, there will be bank failures as a result of this issue, but not the big banks. And the reason is because of the standing repo facility program within the Fed, with a capacity currently of $500 billion to lend to federally insured banks if should they need it. The big banks will be bailed out, and this is why they don't mind having a monopoly of these CRE loans. But the smaller banks will collapse because people aren't going to be able to pay. But what this thing also shows, this story also shows, is that the $500 billion that this program has in the Fed to pay to back any collapse that the bigger banks might suffer, it's actually way more than that. And as they show here, that repo loans from that these are repo loans that allow people to repossess the debt that they lose. Right. From October 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2019, trillions of dollars were given these bigger banks to cover repo debt that they might have lost in part due to their holdings of commercial real estate. The full meaning of the chart above, let it sink in. The story says the Fed can now funnel trillions of dollars in cumulative loans to mega banks on Wall Street, report the names of the banks and amounts borrowed 2 years later, and get a complete news blackout from mainstream media. Jerome Powell, that is the Fed chairman, might have his own agenda in playing down the risks to the mega banks on Wall Street, according to Senator Elizabeth Warren, who sits on the Senate Banking Committee. Powell is leading the charge behind the scenes to overturn federal regulators' proposal to require the largest banks to hold larger amounts of capital to prevent a replay of the 2008 financial crisis. So where the country is in just as bad a spot, if not worse, in terms of a potential crisis. A lot of it is caught up in this commercial real estate that people have loans out for that's not being used because people are working from home now, and these office office spaces are being underused, and there's no rents in them, et cetera, and so forth. So just to wrap up here, just this one story from what is this? The NASDAQ.com, commercial real estate crisis and opportunities. So the short of it is there's a crisis in commercial real estate market, has been in turmoil over the past 2 years, experiencing a significant downturn. The market has seen a 40% drawdown since early 2022. So there's this huge market issue. The big banks have all these loans, so they want to try to find a way to convert these commercial real estate spots into residential, so they can sell and rent out, not to solve homelessness, but to get more people who are looking for a place or a second place to live and make more money, and maybe even get more investment, just on the idea that they will be able to in the future sell these spaces as residential spaces and make more money off of that. Meanwhile, the broader concerns of their exposure still are there, and
so it's similar to that. It's similar to the blockchain in Baltimore finding blighted houses, because they technically are developing algorithms to locate these buildings so that they can convert them. But so as you said, these developers, they're catering to like wealthy people who don't give a damn about people being homeless. And they spend all this money on cars and different things and try to pretty much build this, one-stop shop. I actually seen a lot of these places in Atlanta where you live, and there's restaurants, bars, basketball, everything, right? And they're actually the people that are wasting money. So it's interesting when you talk about buying power. If there was some kind of data that shows how much money wealthy people waste on non-important or non-essential things, I'm pretty sure they will outpace us. But so I have this question though. So we talked about McKissick last week, and this is McKissick's leader of their industry. And if McKissick, and this is my question, if McKissick or a black company were to move more like, there's a Chilean developer named Alejandro Aravena, who does contract with the city to build more beautiful houses for people, low income people. And I wonder if a black company decided to go that route, would either of y'all at least start with a congratulations or acknowledging the effort, like Wale says, and then try to build a relationship to kind of pull them even further? Because I don't think that y'all would think that building these houses and getting government or city contracts to build these houses for homeless people would be a super plus for y'all, but I think it would be in the right direction. And I wonder if y'all would acknowledge that that's better than,
Of course I would. I just would be skeptical that they would get any investment or get the required investment to do what they would claim to do. How would they? Never mind the permits and the political arrangements and all of that. But yeah, I would be willing to. Yeah.
Listen, capitalism doesn't seek to solve problems; it seeks to profit from problems. And I don't care if it's homelessness or the destruction of the ecosystem. No problem. You notice that many of these gene sealers or these so-called progressive or green corps, they always start with, this can be profitable. This is a way for people to sustain profit or even increase their profits. And when they talk about water and water contamination and ocean acidification, so profitability is what's destroying the planet. And the only way we can convince the investor class to engage in something that is less destructive or even could be defined as humane or helpful, you have to argue or demonstrate how it can sustain profitability or increase profitability, which means nothing really gets solved. They just shunt issues around. And so the only way they're going to really invest in housing insecure people is if the government will come in and guarantee and subsidize the rent, so that whatever they can afford to pay to be affordable, the government's going to have to bring it up to not affordable, but profitable. And I think Jared's homeboy, Richard Wolff, was like, that's the worst thing. When you turn houses into commodities, it always collapses the market.
Right.
It always causes economic turmoil because homes are made for living in, not for generating profit and wealth. And when people started looking at their homes as, my home is my investment, my home is a source to generate capital and wealth, or to get investment capital out of my home to put it in the market, and the fucking housing market collapsed. But as he was talking about, these bank collapses just means bank mergers and banking monopolies. It's just a sick cannibalistic cycle. That's all I could think when Jared was going over the data. This is cannibalism. This is economic cannibalism.
So Gensler, they develop a computer algorithm assessment tool to determine buildings' suitability for the conversion. What the tool does is considers the building size, how many windows it has, the floor to ceiling height, and dimensions, and they try to figure out if it's suitable. This algorithm figure out if it's suitable to transition to apartment. But then it goes to,
and I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's not just the windows; it's the depth from the window to the wall. Like, it get very specific. Like, you got to have. Sorry, my bad. Yeah.
No. But again, like as I said though, like they're also not considering, again, the seismic requirement. So they're like, so if these people be in this building and something happened, as we can get into the story with Baltimore, when something bad happened, who's responsible, and insurance and all these other things, conversation gets convoluted. Go ahead, Diallo.
We've been here before. Remember all the industrial infrastructure when the United States deindustrialized and you had the whole warehouse loft movement? And none of those warehouses were appropriate or suitable for residential. And all they did was go to the state legislature and go to local government and have them rezone the property. So this shit is just a candy coating. Oh, yes, we're trying to assess. If they assess that it's not habitable, they would just change the zoning, change the habitability regulations, and move forward to make money. Right. So this is just window dressing. If they are able to construct a scheme and have people, hanging their laundry outside of the local skyscraper, poor folks, because they're doing that here, even with the so-called the manufactured refugee and manufactured migrant crisis. They're already putting them in places that were deemed uninhabitable, unfit for human habitation. So just because I don't give much weight to the algorithm and to their assessments, because if they deem it uninhabitable, but they also deem it potentially profitable, they're just going to rewrite the zoning and the habitability restrictions.
That's right.
Or ignore them.
So in terms of public policy, I was looking at like the data on how much homes or property the city or the state owns. And so like Baltimore City owns 9.9% of the vacant properties. You have the cities in, I think it's Chicago Chicago that owns 10,000 parcels of land, and mostly in the southwest side, and much of the land
polluted.
Is polluted. Okay, so they couldn't even utilize it to give to the people.
Yes, they can't. They can and they will though. They just put a bunch of Venezuelan
migrants.
Refugees. They just put a bunch of Venezuelans. Every Venezuelan that is here has every right to be here. Until the United States ends its economic warfare and subversion of illegal blockade against Venezuela, every Venezuelan here has every right to be here.
They're just taking our jobs.
And now that sister that said that migrants, the migrants, not only can they take our jobs, now they can get guns. That sister was like, listen. Anybody that comes to the United States is covered by the Constitution, and because so illegal migrants have a right to purchase and carry firearms. And if you live in an open carry state, you know, the Al Qaeda terrorists who came across the border learned Spanish.
So before we get to Candace Owens' argument about state and public and government, like when
anything that Coon said.
That's fine. The Coon says the same thing as other people that you celebrate, including Wise Intelligence.
Well, some people are worthy of being.
All I'm just saying is the Coon land the planes.
Support that sister, man. She just lost her job, man. We need to support that.
No, that's what the fuck. That's why she over there in the first place. But let me ask you this question. So
she's back to plague us.
Yeah, that's fine. So nearly 40% of U.S. land is publicly owned, supported by taxpayers and managed by federal, state, and local governments. With that land being controlled by the state, what are y'all thoughts around? Again, I know that there's a lot of language around all states is bad, and Candace Owens, you know, again, when she says anything that has to do with government is bad. But how do y'all look at those numbers when you know that, you know, the state or the government owns at least 40% of the
between that and eminent domain?
100%, comrade.
That's what I was going to say. Technically, between that and eminent domain, they do. Whenever they want it, they can take it. And if they said the needs of the people are such that they need some place to live and be fed on and have clean water, whatever, they could take it.
They don't let black folks own. They just give us this shit on loan.
Who bars? That's your bars?
No, that's Iraq from the coup.
Oh, okay. I thought you was dropping some shit, yo. Who knows?
Sorry, I'm a biker. I like to bike.
What the fuck is you talking about?
You too young to get it. Sorry, you too young.